Arya's footsteps echoed through the narrow alleyways of Old Town, the setting sun casting long shadows across worn cobblestones. The 17-year-old tugged her worn jacket tighter, quickening her pace. She was late for her shift at the diner, again. A flicker of golden light caught her eye, stopping her in her tracks. There, nestled between a musty bookshop and a boarded-up cafe, sat a tiny antique store she'd never noticed before. Its window display was cluttered with dusty oddities, but one item seemed to glow with an inner light, an ornate pocket watch, its case etched with intricate gears and swirling patterns. Before Arya could think twice, she was inside the shop, a tinkling bell announcing her presence. The watch sat on a faded velvet cushion, even more beautiful up close. "Ah, you've got a good eye," miscroaked an old man, emerging from the shadows. His eyes twinkled behind thick spectacles. "That there's a special piece. Sure you can afford it?" Arya bristled at his assumption. "How much?" The old man named a price that made her wince, but she found herself digging into her savings anyway. Something about the watch called to her. Minutes later, Arya hurried down the street, the weight of the watch heavy in her pocket. She was definitely late now, but she couldn't resist. Ducking into a quiet doorway, she carefully opened the watch's case. The world stopped. For a heartbeat, then two, everything around her froze. A pigeon hung suspended mid-flight. A drop of water from a leaky gutter paused in mid-air. The very air seemed to hold its breath. Then, with a rush, time snapped back into motion. Arya gasped, her heart pounding. What had just happened? She examined the watch more closely, noticing a tiny compartment hidden behind the watch face. Inside was a slip of yellowed paper covered in spidery handwriting. To break the curse, find the key. Where time flows backwards by the ancient tree. But beware the cost of seconds rewound. For in meddling with time, your fate is bound. A chill ran down Arya's spine. Curse. What had she gotten herself into? As if in answer, a prickling sensation crept up the back of her neck. She whirled around to see a tall figure in a dark coat at the end of the alley, staring directly at her. The stranger's face was hidden in shadow, but Arya could feel the intensity of their gaze. Without thinking, she bolted, the watch clutched tightly in her hand. Questions raced through her mind. Who was that person? What was this curse? And most importantly, what had she just unleashed? One thing was certain: Arya's ordinary life had just become anything but. Arya's fingers trembled as she traced the etched gears on the pocket watch's case. 3 days had passed since her encounter in the alley, and she hadn't slept more than a few fitful hours. The watch's mysterious power and the cryptic message consumed her thoughts. A gentle knock startled her. "Arya? You in there?" It was Leo, the history major, who volunteered at the library where Arya often sought refuge. She cracked open the door. "Hey Leo, what's up?" Leo's eyes lit up with excitement. "Remember that book you asked about? On 18th century clockmakers. I found something even better." Arya hesitated, then stepped aside to let him in. If anyone could help unravel this mystery, it was Leo. As Leo spread out old manuscripts and printouts on Arya's cluttered desk, she finally revealed the watch. His jaw dropped. "Arya, do you realize what you have here? This matches the description of the infamous Kronos watch, crafted by the sorcerer inventor Ezra Thorn in 1742. It was thought to be destroyed centuries ago." Arya's heart raced. "Sorcerer? Leo, I need to show you something." She demonstrated the watch's time-freezing ability. Leo's eyes widened in disbelief, then narrowed in concentration. "Incredible," he whispered. The legends were true. But Arya, using this could be dangerous. Thorn's experiments with time magic eventually led to his downfall. Together, they pored over Leo's research. They discovered that Thorn had created the watch as part of a larger device, one that could manipulate time on a grand scale. But the power had corrupted him, leading to a catastrophe that nearly tore reality apart. "The watch is only half the apparatus," Leo explained, pointing to an illustration. "The other piece, the key mentioned in your note, was hidden away by Thorn's apprentices to prevent its misuse." Arya frowned. "But what's this about a curse?" Before Leo could answer, The watch began to glow. Acting on instinct, Arya flipped it open. The world slowed to a crawl, but instead of stopping, everything began moving backward. Moments rewound before their eyes. Leo's entrance reversed, papers flying back into his bag. Arya watched herself move backwards through her room, out into the street. With a gasp, she snapped the watch shut. The abrupt return to normal time left her dizzy. "What just happened?" Leo asked, steadying her. "I think," Arya said slowly, "we just discovered the watch's true power. It doesn't just freeze time, it can rewind it." A shadow fell across the window. Arya's blood ran cold as she recognized the silhouette of the figure from the alley. "We need to go," she said urgently, grabbing Leo's arm. "Now." As they rushed from the room, Leo's research scattered to the floor. One page landed face up, revealing a portrait. The man in the image was unmistakable. It was the same face Arya had seen pursuing her, unchanged despite being centuries old. Beneath the portrait, a caption read, "Alexander Thorne, last known descendant of Ezra Thorne, rumored to still seek his ancestors' lost power." Arya and Leo raced through the streets, the weight of history and the threat of the present spurring them on. The hunt for answers had only revealed more dangerous questions, and time itself was no longer the reliable constant Arya had once believed it to be. The ancient library loomed before Arya and Leo, its Gothic spires piercing the night sky. After a week of frantic research and narrow escapes from Alexander Thorne, they had tracked the location of the watch's missing piece to this forgotten archive in Prague. "Remember," Leo whispered as they slipped inside, "we're looking for anything related to the key where time flows backwards." Arya nodded, the weight of the pocket watch heavy in her jacket. She'd used its power twice more since discovering its ability to rewind time. Each use left her feeling drained, and she could have sworn she spotted a grey hair in the mirror that morning. As they crept through dusty shelves, a faint ticking filled the air. It grew louder as they approached a section marked Tempus Fugit. "Leo, look," Arya pointed to a book that seemed to pulse with an inner light. As Leo reached for it, the floor beneath them vanished. They plummeted into darkness, landing hard on cold stone. Groaning, Arya looked up to see the hole they'd fallen through seal itself. "Some kind of magical trap," Leo muttered, helping her up. "We must be close." A gleam caught Arya's eye. There, on a pedestal, sat an object that mirrored the intricate designs of her pocket watch, the key. As Arya approached, the air shimmered. A translucent figure materialized, an old man with kind eyes and a familiar face. "Ezra Thorne," Leo breathed. The spectral form nodded. "You seek to undo my greatest mistake, but beware, for the power to reshape time comes at a terrible cost." "What cost?" Arya asked, her voice trembling. "Each use of the watch drains the wielder's own time," Ezra explained. "Your youth, your very life force, fuels its magic." Arya's hand flew to her face, remembering the grey hair. "How do we break the curse?" "Unite the watch and key at the place where I forged them," Ezra said. "But choose wisely. Breaking the curse may prevent the watch's misuse, but it will also erase all changes you've made to the timeline." Before they could ask more, the ghost faded. In its place stood Alexander Thorne, his eyes gleaming with triumph. "Thank you for leading me here," he sneered, raising a hand crackling with dark energy. "Now, hand over the watch." Arya's mind raced. They were trapped, cornered by a powerful sorcerer. In desperation, she grabbed the key and opened the pocket watch. Time rewound violently. Alexander moved backwards out of the room. The ghost of Ezra reappeared, then vanished. Arya felt herself aging rapidly, pain racking her body as years slipped away. With the last of her strength, she snapped the watch shut. They were back in the library, moments before falling into the trap. Leo stared at her in horror. "Arya, your hair, your face." She caught her reflection in a window. Her once youthful features had aged decades in seconds, but clutched in her withered hand was the key. "We have to go," she said, her voice now rough with age. "I know where we need to be." But as they hurried from the library, Arya's mind spun. They had the means to break the curse, but at what cost? And with Alexander close behind, Could they make it in time? The race to the curse's origin had begun, and the fate of time itself hung in the balance. The ancient clock tower loomed against the stormy sky, its weathered face marking more than just hours and minutes. This was where Ezra Thorn had forged the watch centuries ago, and where Arya and Leo now raced to end its curse. Arya stumbled, her aged body betraying her. Leo caught her arm, concern etched on his face. "We're almost there," he encouraged, glancing nervously over his shoulder. They could hear Alexander Thorn's furious shouts growing closer. The sorcerer's descendant had pursued them relentlessly across continents, growing more powerful with each encounter as he siphoned temporal energy from the disturbances caused by the watch. As they reached the tower's base, the ground began to shake. Reality itself seemed to warp and twist around them. "The curse," Leo gasped. "It's destabilizing time." They pushed through the creaking door and climbed the winding stairs. With each step, Arya felt years slipping away from her. By the time they reached the top, she was little more than a withered husk, clinging to life. The clock's massive gears surrounded them, each tick echoing like thunder. In the center stood a pedestal with 2 indentations, one for the watch, one for the key. "Well done," a cold voice said behind them. Alexander emerged from the shadows, his eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. "I'll take those now." Leo stepped protectively in front of Arya. "Never," he declared. "We're ending this." Alexander laughed, raising his hands. Dark temporal energy crackled between his fingertips. "You have no idea of the power this watch truly holds," he sneered. "Why simply control your own timeline when you can reshape reality itself?" He unleashed a blast of energy that sent Leo flying across the room. Arya crumpled to the floor, the watch and key tumbling from her grasp. As Alexander reached for them, time seemed to slow. Arya saw flashes of all the moments that had led her here, finding the watch, meeting Leo, the choices she'd made. With her last ounce of strength, she lunged forward. Her withered hands closed around the watch and key, just as Alexander's fingers brushed them. In that instant of contact, a blinding light erupted. Arya found herself in a place beyond time. Ezra Thorn's spirit stood before her, sorrow in his eyes. "You've brought the pieces together," he said softly. "Now you face the final choice. Break the curse, and all will be as it was. The watch will never have existed. Or use its power one last time to stop Alexander and save your friend. But beware, this final use may cost you everything." Arya's mind raced. Erase everything, including her friendship with Leo and the lessons she'd learned, or risk it all to save him and stop Alexander. In that timeless moment, she made her choice. Reality snapped back into focus. Arya slammed the watch and key into the pedestal. A shockwave of temporal energy exploded outward. Alexander screamed as centuries of accumulated power were torn from him. The clock tower shuddered, gears grinding as time itself was rewritten. Arya felt her youth returning, the curse's effects reversing. But she also felt herself fading, becoming less substantial with each passing second. "Leo," she called out, her voice growing faint. Their eyes met across the room, understanding and sorrow passing between them. "I'll remember," Leo promised, reaching for her as she disappeared. In a flash, it was over. Leo found himself back on the street, where he'd first bumped into Arya weeks ago. But this time, there was no antique shop, no mysterious watch, just an ordinary day. As people rushed by, Leo stood still, a single tear rolling down his cheek. In his hand was clutched a small gear, the only proof that their adventure had ever happened. Somewhere, somewhen, he knew Arya was out there, and maybe, just maybe, their paths would cross again. For now, the Clockwork Curse was broken, and time flowed on a little sadder, perhaps, but also a little wiser for the journey it had taken. Thank you so very much for listening to this story. I thoroughly hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please subscribe, leave a like, and comment too. I hope to see you on the next adventure.